Hello everyone, welcome to Neural Minds. In this video series, we are going to learn C++ programming step by step, starting completely from the basics. This series is designed for absolute beginners, students, and anyone who wants to build strong programming logic. You no need to any prior experience, just watch, listen, and try to code yourself. Let's begin. So, at first, what exactly is C++? C++ is a general purpose programming language used in many real world systems. It used in operating system, game engine, embedded system, high performance software, and even parts of AI systems. The reason why we learn C++ is not just a syntax, but because it teaches how programs really works, memory, logic, and performances. In this series, we will focus on understanding logic clearly, not memorizing. That's the most important thing. Learning a programming language is fun, and if you learn one programming language, it's easy to adapt or learn other programming languages. So why is C++? That is very popular programming language for many years, and it supports in embedded system or electronics, gaming. So everywhere we can actually use this C++ programming. So in order to learn C++ programming, many of us think about how to install IDE. Is there any requirements needed in order to install integrated development environment, IDE, right? So those are all the tools actually helpful to organize your project well and compile or debugging. Okay, but to start with, nowadays we no need to have any IDE. What we can actually do is use online compiler. In a sense, just you need a browser, that's all, right? So one such compiler, there are many compiler available like a Programmis or online GDB. I will be using online GDB. This is actually supports in many ways. In a sense, once you do the coding, you can even share the link to your friends or your buddies. Okay, so it's very easy. And when you look into this, you can actually choose which programming language you want to select to, right? It has a C++ or many versions. You have Python, PHP, even Java. So we will focus on slowly one by one. Even Java and Python we will move on, right? So let's look at what we are going to learn today. Okay, so we are going to learn about our first C++ program and what are the most important thing you need to know when you want to write the code. Okay, so I always recommend writing the code is actually just maybe 20 to 20% you need, but before that what we have to do is we have to know that algorithm or steps, step by step, what we have to do. So for example, if someone asks you, hey, add these three numbers, so what you do, you keep it in your memory that okay, 10 plus 20 plus 10. So you will know already 10 plus 20 plus 10, 40, right? It's very easy. But how if you want to do it in the computer? So that's most important. So when it comes to C++, okay, so you need to learn the structure of the C++ program. So in the C++ programming language, so you need to have one main, okay, main method. Okay, so you need to have the main method, integer main. Since the compiler always look at, even though you have many files, you must have only one main method in that file. So it will look for your main method and start to execute the code from the main method. Okay, so this is a must, and above that we call it as a preprocessor directives. So what are preprocessor directives? Some of the functions, built-in commands or functions such as cout, for example, right? It comes under IO stream. But usually what we do, if we have to use standard, okay, std standard and scope resolution operator in order to do. But if we can avoid this, I will tell you later on why we should always use the std and scope resolution operator instead of shortcut. Okay, so you can avoid that using namespace std, right? So that we no need to call that. Okay, so cout, and This is the syntax that, as I mentioned in some of those examples in my shorts video, that very simple main method. Inside you have a statements, whatever statement you want to write, you can write, and a return 0. But the recent version of C++, you no need to have the return 0 also. Version 23 onwards, you not necessary you need to mention, even if you comment it out. So what do you mean by comment? Comments are very good for documentation purpose. Documentation in a sense, maybe you are writing a code, a few lines of code, and you want to know what is the purpose of the few lines of code. So you can write like a dem, so that it increases the readability. User easily can read and understand. If you pass the code to others, they can understand by going through the comments. Okay, so you can always make a comment, a single line comment using double slash. So first we will write the very first simple program. This program just one output statement. This output statement C out are placed under this library iostream.library. So formatting input and output commands or functions comes under this iostream. So you can try to run the code. When you run the code will gives the results. So for example, here it is not running the code because I haven't choose the language. So let me go and choose the language C++23. Okay, and now when I run, it may throw error messages if I have any error messages. For example, here, right? So this is how it's very important that you may do mistakes, but you can easily recover if you know what is that actually means. So here, the bottom, it actually shows what is the problem with the code, right? So when you try to run the code, it's supposed to produce the output, welcome to the neural minds. Very simple. See, just one line of code we have. Even if I comment this line, this code supposed to work, right? So no problem. So the code is working perfectly well since we are using the version C++23. Okay, so you just need an online compiler, just a browser to start learning your C++ programming. I will be giving you the link as well. Okay, so it is very easy. You can go to Google and look for online C++ compiler. It will list down whatever compiler it has. So you can use any one of this, but I always use this one, okay, in my videos. Okay, right? So let's see now. From just showing the cout, we wanted to know about variables and output. Okay, so for example, I want to print out my name and my age, for example, right? Maybe your name and your age. So you can follow along with me and do the coding, no problem, right? It's very easy. Just take the compiler and come and join this video, right? So if why we need to have variable in a programming language. So variables are like reference names used in the memory. Okay, so if you talk about variable, every programming language has a rules. How do you name the variable? You cannot name the variable as you wish. For example, I put integer. So okay, I will come back and tell you why is integer. For example, name I can do is one variable. Okay, and integer, for example, age, another variable I declare. Okay, so two variable I declare, where the name I'm going to store my name, age we are going to store the age of a person. Okay, so the name we are going to store a name of a person, right? So what happens is that this is the reference name. All the values whatever you pass it to the name and age, it stores somewhere in the memory. Okay, it stores somewhere in the memory. So memory we can consider as series of cells or locations. Okay, series of cells or locations where it stores. So the memory associated with three things. One is the reference name, the content, where what value you want to pass it to this variable name, and the memory address, usually represented with the hexadecimal number. Memory address are represented with the hexadecimal number to the base of 16, right? So you may aware of. So, and what does this mean? INT. What is INT means? It's a data type. So the first one, when you talk about the name, INT is referring int is referring a data type. In a programming language, when you want to store the value may be of different types. For example, it can be a whole number. That's what the purpose of INT. integer, right? It represents a whole number. It may have a float, for example. Float represents a fractional values. You may have a string. Here I put integer, but it's not a proper, right? That's what I mentioned. So it's supposed to be a string. String in a sense, an alphanumeric. Okay? So you're supposed to have a string. So two variable, one is a string. If you include the string, you also need to do include, right? You have to mention include string. All right. We can include the data type. The string comes under the string class, okay, or string library. Why? Name consists of characters, right? Many characters. Sometimes it may have spaces in between. So string value represents alphanumeric combination or collection of alphanumeric values. Okay, alphanumeric values in a sense, alphabet combination of alphabet, some numbers you can have, right? So usually, so that's why you have to do. So integer data type represents a whole number. String represents a text, for example. Okay, a simple text is characters, right? So that's what we can see. So the compiler, why we need to mention the data type? The compiler should allocate necessary memory space for that type of variable. Sometimes fractional value, you need more number of bits to store or bytes to store. I will come back, I throw questions for it later on. Okay, so if it is integer, it may have, normally it takes 2 bytes to store. Okay, normally, but it depends on the computer architecture. So you don't always assume that every architecture it takes only 2 bytes. No, some architecture it may go up to integer data type may occupy up to 4 bytes of information or 4 bytes of memory. Okay, 4 bytes of memory, right? So double is a fractional value, float is a fractional value. Some language we use double, some language use float. I also can represent one single character. Okay, for example, y to represent yes, no to represent no, for example, right? So that is also possible. R to represent color, so just one character. So we can define char is a data. Whenever you want to declare a variable, you must have a data type and then your variable name. Okay, in C++ programming. So what I do, I declare two variable and name. So one way is you can straight away initialize the value for the variable. So for example, we can put it equal to, you can put it as double quotes, neural minds, for example. So you can put it that. And for example, age, you can put it straight away as 1 month. Okay, for example, represents 1. Right? And what we can do is we can print out the statement with, if it is a cout, you have to use the insertion operator. This is what called insertion operator. So it inserts that value into the console. Okay, so for example, I put name, I call the name, variable name, and then I want to give a space in between printing that value, space, and for example, and age. Okay. So let's see whether it works or not. Okay. So you can see also here neural minds and shows 1, right? Maybe what we can also do is we can make it more better in a sense. For example, you can put it name colon this and then this symbol name, and similarly we can put a comma, and here what we can do is we can put age, right, colon, and then we can do this age. Okay, so now let's see what happens is that we can actually see that here it will print a name and then neural minds comma then age equal to. This is what we can do with variable and output. Okay, so we can declare, we declare two variable of different type. One is here is a string data type name, because we wanted to mention name, we store a string data type, and we have an integer data type. Okay. Integer data type. Okay, so that's called a data type, right? So the easiest way what we can do is we can learn that program. The program is works. Okay. Name, So the variable, whenever you declare a variable, the computer remembers, okay, name means it knows where is the location it's supposed to go and get the content of it. Okay, it throws somewhere in the memory, right? So it has the address, the location. So it points to that uh, location address. So it knows already to read. Whenever you want to use the variable, we are using it here, right? We are using it here. We declare and then we output. So it has to bring that values, and then similarly exactly like how we put it into our memory. So that's what the first thing. Okay, so you need to be aware of. So I have one question for you now. In memory, for example, in computing world, if we talk about memory, memory has a base of 8 bits. One bit we can see either 0 as 1, right? In computer language, all in the form of binary, right? This is considered a high level language. We are writing a program. So what happens is that when you try to run the code, we have two steps involved. One is the compile and another one is the run. So when you do the compile, the program check for any error messages. For example, if you miss out any semicolon here, if you miss out a semicolon, it will throw error messages. Okay, so you should know, oh, what is the mistake. Okay, it shows the line number, right? That's what we have to be aware. The compiler verifies whether the program, the high level code has any error. If no error, it will go to the second stage where execute. So when you execute, it create an object file, right? So it will create an object file that is only machine readable form. So it will create the file and then it run the file. Then you will able to see the output, right? That's the first place. So we have variable. So now come back to the question now. In a memory, the basic base unit of memory is 8 bits is considered 1 byte. Okay, we call it 1 byte. Likewise, if you have 1024 bytes is 1 megabyte, then one have gigabyte, then terabyte, then petabytes, right? It goes like that. So why we have to consider 8 bits and as as considered as a byte? Why not 10 bits? Why not 7 bit? Why not 5 bits? Why not make it round 10 bits? Anybody knows the answer? Please share it in the comment. Okay, I will review it on the next lesson. Okay, right. So this is how the very basic, very simple example where you need to have a data type and name of the variable. So when you define the variable, every programming language has certain rules. For example, in C++, the name can start with the underscore. For example, you can put underscore name. You can, if you want to name it, okay, and we cannot give any space in between name one like that. So if you try to run, it will throw error message. Okay, so it cannot give any spaces. It's a combination of variable name, but you can put name one, then there is no problem. It will work, right? Because here also we have to pass it name one, right? Since we change the name everywhere, every instance you have to change it as well. So now it works. If you don't, then you cannot just change it in one place because we are using it, right? And you cannot start a variable name with the numeric number, one name, for example. If I pass one name, okay? So if I pass a number, you can see also here, right? It throws error message as well. One name itself, string one name itself throws error message. Certain languages have certain rules. C++ has, you can start with the underscore or with alphabet. Okay. Java, actually you can start with even special symbols like a dollar symbol. You can start Java. Okay, but C++ it only has like that. So you need to have how to name the variable. You cannot go and name main also. It will confuse. You cannot name same int int because these are all considered as reserved words for the types, data types, represent the types of the data. Okay, we have character, we have string, we have float, we have double, we have boolean. Bool, for example, presents true or false value. Okay, so we'll talk about that later on about all the data types. Okay, so this is how you learn the programming. So when you want to write the code, you need to know, okay, how many variables. Okay, for example, let's say I have three numbers, A, B, C, for example. I want to compare. No need to go three numbers, just two numbers, A and B. I want to see which one is biggest, which one is smallest, right? Two numbers is very easy, right? So let's do a simple code to display that. Okay, for example, we can put it integer A equal to 10, for example, right? And you can put integer b equal to 27. By looking at, you will know already which number is small, which number is big, but computer doesn't know. What we have to do, we need to compare the number, right? Two number, we know already very easily, you can store a and b, we name it a and b, but we wanted to find out which number is the smallest number. So what we have to do, we have to look for different kind of statements available in C++. So one such facility is if statement selection, right? So for example, if a greater than b, example, then what we can do, see out a, right? A is bigger, else see out b is bigger, right? That's all. We're comparing. So this is, we learn about operator. There are different types of operator available. They call it as an arithmetic operator and logical operator. We have relational operator. We have bitwise operators. Okay. So some of the sorts I have used those operators, bitwise operators. So here is a conditional statement. We are checking if is to check either you want to execute one part of the code or not. Okay, branching based on the condition, I want to execute only this part, if not I want to execute other part. So likewise we can make use of the if conditions. Okay, I wanted to put a simple loop. So here is the simple program what we actually gone through, right? So let's run this code, see whether it works or not. B is bigger, correct? B is bigger. So let's say change the B to 5 now. Let's say change the B value to 5 now and see what happens now. It works now, is A is bigger, right? You can see here A is bigger. So this is how you learn how to write the code. In order to know that, you must know, okay, what are the different form of conditional statements available. Conditional in a sense, selection statement. Selection is used to branching. Execute only certain statement or group of statement. Looping is to repeat many times, or iteration, okay? Like for, while and do while are used to repeat many things again and again. Learn, you have to learn those things while moving along, okay, right? This is what I just start the first series of it, so anybody can join. Anyone who want to learn about that, you can able to join this video, not a problem. We will go through slowly and steadily to learn all the aspects of a programming languages. Okay, so what we learned today, summary of today's sessions, we learn what are the things needed. So you need to include the library. Most commonly for simple program, we will use IOStream. There are many library available, like a mathematical function, you can use math, you can see others, there's some data structures available. We will go slowly on one by one, all right? So we just included toString, so you can use this naming. If you don't want to use this, you have to use whenever you see out or see in is to read the number. Now we initialize the value, but I don't want the manually pass the value when you run the code, but user enter through the keyboard. So that's what we can use in console in. So user can enter the value when they want to run the code. So it's more like a dynamic rather than manually or hard code the values here, right? So that also is very simple. You can do, I can show a demo of this as well. So for example, just declare integer a comma b, and what we can do is we can just put a cout to let the user know what they're supposed to do. Enter two values, right? And in, what we can do is a and b. You can just use one in to read many values, no problem. Okay, but you have to use the extraction operator. So now when I try to run the code, what happens is that it will display what the user is supposed to do. So this is the purpose of adding this cout, right? If let's say I stop here and then I comment this code. Comment in a sense, the compiler ignores whatever comment you add. The compiler look at this symbol, okay, it will just skip that line. It won't do any action on it. Okay. Now what happens is that when I try to run, it's just a blank, the cursor blinking. So user may get confused, what am I supposed to do? So that's why it is always good practice to let the user knows what the user is supposed to do. So adding a cout before you going to enter any values, so it displays that, so that user are aware of it. All right, so what we can do is I have to enter two values here. So I enter 100 and 75, for example 75, I enter. Okay, now the program, it shows first value is considered A, second C in whatever value enter is considered B. So that means first value is 100, second value is 75. So which one is bigger? A. Obviously the first value is bigger, so it will print that output. So this is how you have to learn in the coding. Okay, so we will talk about in the next session, right? So that's a summary. We learn about variable, data type, simple input command. This is an input in a sense to get the value from the console, input, and we learn a simple output. Okay, simple output command. In next session we will cover more on input as well as operator and conditions. Correct. So if you have any question, please put it in the comment, as well as if you like this video, please comment yes, so that it will motivate me, and please subscribe, and see you in the next video. Take care everyone. Bye.